The Resonance Cascade was one of the most catastrophic events in human history. Portal storms flooded the skies, bringing with them animals and plant life from another world. Humankind had always been curious about what lay beyond the vast expanse, but they were unprepared for the hostility and danger posed by some of these entities. Head crabs latched onto the heads of their victims, breaking into their skulls to control them like puppets. The Xenian spores infected those who inhaled them, turning them into hosts for alien plant life. Amongst these threats, one creature in particular offered a fate worse than death when it captured its prey. What was this creature? How dangerous was it? And why did it become one of the most iconic entities in the Half-Life series? Here, we explore the lore and story behind the terrifying Barnacle species of Half-Life. The border world of Xen was once just a dimension that connected to other worlds across space. Over many years, it collected physical fragments and life from the dimensions it connected to. Nothing was native to Xen, but as each new life form migrated over, they made it their own and created a pretty interesting ecosystem. Each animal and plant found their place on these floating islands, and with each addition, the food chain adapted. Hound-eye hunted in packs, the head crab was sought out by the Vortigaunt as a food source, the ichthyosaurs consumed almost anything that entered their waters. These were the active predators. However, the immobile predators were not seen as much of a threat until it was too late. On the roofs of the natural cave formations of Xen, the Barnacle species waited for their prey. Upon contact with their tongues that dangled to the base of the cave, they became extremely sticky and pulled up what they had caught to their terrifying mouths. The strength of their tongue was also immense, as they often wrapped themselves around anything they could of their prey to keep them. Whenever a barnacle had caught something, it was almost a certain death. The Vortigaunt learned to avoid the cave regions, and if they really had to enter one, they would make sure to look up for a hanging tongue. On Xen, the history of the barnacle and how they functioned was not something that was thought about too much. Yet, upon the arrival of humanity and their thirst for knowledge, not only would the barnacle and their kind be explored, but they would also have another opportunity to migrate and expand to somewhere new. On Earth, the Black Mesa Research Facility experimented with and explored teleportation technology, just like Aperture Science had. While Aperture had managed to generate connecting portals from one point to another, Black Mesa discovered how to access an entire new world, Xen. In humanity's natural thirst to understand the universe, survey teams were sent through to Xen by the Black Mesa administration with the goal to explore this world and bring back samples and specimens for study. On one of these teams, Dr. Lewis Donaldson entered a cave and accidentally walked into something he believed was a rope. However, upon contact, this rope became extremely sticky and attached itself to the doctor. The following 20 seconds would have felt like an eternity to Donaldson as he was lifted into the air slowly. When he looked up, he saw the rows of sharp teeth waiting for him. Despite his best efforts, Lewis Donaldson was eaten alive and his body was digested by the barnacle's stomach fluid. Dr. Lewis Donaldson had become the first human victim of a barnacle. From the ground, his team watched in horror as this had occurred, but there was nothing they could have done. Upon their return to Earth with samples and specimens of a barnacle, they gave this creature the taxonomic designation of Cirripedia donaldsonia in honor of their fallen colleague. With the collected samples, the team discovered that these creatures lived for approximately 500 years, and after they had begun their gestation in colonies on a surface, they stayed there for their whole lives. Those that survived grew in locations with a consistent amount of food that wandered beneath them. As for those who grew in regions without any traffic, they died out. Just like many animals in nature, the strongest and smartest survived. In this case, the lucky did. A dissection and further study of the Cirripedia donaldsonia revealed these formed on the roofs of structures and simply waited for prey to wander below them. Their whole body was a fleshy mass, with a large mouth of 2 rows of sharp teeth. Their tongues were the most interesting and important part of the Barnacle. Not only were they strong enough to lift an entire human, but they appeared to have the ability to activate and deactivate how sticky their tongues were. The team believed this natural adhesive was possible as a result of tiny hairs on the tongue, a way for them to pick up and drop something at will. Because of the limited barnacles they discovered on Xen, the team were unable to explore just how they functioned on the food chain. However, the weapons division did find another use for the creatures. This team managed to remove a barnacle from the surface it was attached to, kept it alive, and transformed it into a sort of weapon, the Barnacle Grapple, designed to pull the user to a specific spot. Although Black Mesa had attempted to learn as much as they could about the Barnacle, only the survivors of the Black Mesa incident would actually get a chance to see them in a new, natural environment. While it has not been confirmed officially how the Barnacle migrated to new locations, it is believed that they generated spores and the wind brought them to new regions. Shortly after the Resonance Cascade and the Portal Storms, spores of the Barnacles migrated to Earth and they formed in colonies across the globe as the years passed. During this time, the Combine also invaded the planet and subjected humanity to some of the worst treatments imaginable. Held in settlements, these people were kept in the dark about what had happened to the world outside of the settlements. Meanwhile, in the wasteland of Earth, the creatures of Xen made this place their home. For the human population that escaped and attempted to make it on their own, they were surprised and killed quickly by the dangers out here. Specifically, in caves and tunnels, clusters of barnacles just waited for their next meal. Still, humanity was not their only source of food. In the mines taken over by the antlion, countless barnacle clusters formed. The antlion themselves were blind and relied on sounds and vibrations to navigate their surroundings. As the barnacle did not move unless something touched their tongues, the antlion became easy prey for their species. As grubs constantly grew into antlions, the barnacle always had a meal. As the resistance grew across the City 17 region, they shared their knowledge of the dangers of Xen. To navigate their world, they learned to always explore their surroundings before entering a region with a roof. They also learned to use objects around them to trigger their sensations on a barnacle's tongue to distract them as they passed. For those with ammo to spare, despite the terrifying nature of a barnacle, they were fairly easy to take out in comparison to an antlion or headcrab, as a few bullets killed them. However, the death of a barnacle often led to their stomachs dropping, along with their stomach acid and the bones of their victims, and there were always more of them. The arrival of the Combine had brought chaos and terror to this world, but even they struggled to contain the Xenian infestation. At one point, an entire section of City 17 was quarantined because spores, seeds, and hostile life sprouted all around. In their efforts, workers were sent into the quarantine zone to neutralize the threat, but more always came, and these workers fell victim to this alien life. Amongst these was the barnacle, and as long as they were able to form and grow, there would always be more of them to wrap their tongues around their prey as they ate them alive. Zen had collected many interesting yet terrifying creatures through its connection to countless worlds and dimensions. The poor population of Earth sadly had to encounter these after the Resonance Cascade. A death at the tongue and teeth of a Barnacle could be considered one of the worst fates in the entire Half-Life series. Yes, the transformation into a stalker or zombie can be considered worse, but the moment in which a victim was caught on the tongue and watched as they were slowly dragged into the air and into the teeth of this creature to be eaten alive is horrendous. The Barnacle existed outside of the war between humanity and the Combine, and they will surely be there after it is over. Despite who wins, just like a weed, they will always pop up and form somewhere new. Dr. Lewis Donaldson may have been the first victim, but he was for sure not the last by a long stretch. I have wanted to cover the Barnacle for a while, but I knew it was going to be a shorter video. This species is fascinating and terrifying. It basically encapsulates what Half-Life is and what drew me to it. I tend to enjoy working on big projects and putting as much information I can into a video, but this topic was pretty simple. The Barnacle has also been requested a bunch of times, so I thought, why not? I am currently working on the next timeline in the background. A simple video like this was quite refreshing to work on, as I have been studying and exploring the Talos Principle for about 2 months now. I think I may need just another 2 weeks to finish the long edit. It is going to be a long one, the longest timeline I've put together. The thought of being a victim of a Barnacle is truly terrifying. As I said in the Legacy section, other than becoming a stalker or a headcrab zombie, I cannot think of anything worse. Knowing that you are about to die, eaten alive. And the thing is, the Barnacle is not really evil. It is a product of nature and, through evolution, adapted and survived. I'm so glad we do not have anything like it in reality. If we do, please do not tell me. That was everything I wanted to say really. If you enjoyed this shorter video, then I'd love you to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, and let me know what you thought in the comments section below. Finally, I would like to thank my gold tier patrons and channel members: Jonas, Lewis, Queen Arby, Fluffy the Dragon, Chicken Guy 791, Ruben Mendoza, Duke, Toadnut, Oren X, Azu, Karatana, AJ, Verona, Comfy, BG Games, Apravis, Arnis, Blaze of Glory, Cole Sherman, Yali Rodriguez, Nabar, 501st Clone Boy, Drakey Phoenix, Logan Scott, Tamarin, Average Sol, and Gordon Freeman. What do you think is the worst fate in the Half-Life series? Is the Barnacle species evil or just a product of nature? And what would you like me to cover next? Please let me know in the comments below. This is where our story ends. Check back soon for a new one.